Greetings, people. This is the Ramble Transmissions Podcast. I am Kevin Seckett, your host and humble narrator. And it's true. It's true. We're back. I've been away doing my own things up in here and over in here and up there and there. But I never once forgot about you. And I appreciate the concerns, the check-ins, the words of encouragement. I really am happy that many of you like this podcast, and you're rooting for me. It's a great feeling. Speaking of podcasts, this, of course, is one of two podcasts that I am doing. I have also been working on, for those of you not in the know, another podcast, which is a little more interview oriented. Me talking with people that are interesting to me, people that I like, people that inspire me, people from my past, people from my current, and it's just been a joyful ride just getting to sit down with, this is driving me crazy. I thought if I buttoned it up, it would make me look a little more presentable, but fuck it. But it's been great. We've got something like, I think 11 or 12 episodes in the can. As I mentioned before, the launch date of this podcast. Incidentally, the podcast is called Please Unfriend Me Now. That's the name of the podcast. The launch date was pushed back. Initially, I thought stupidly that I could get everything together, and actually I did get it all together. Editing-wise, I was able to get everything finished up, all the episodes. I wanted to get it done before my birthday, which was this past March 24th. But there were a couple of issues regarding a couple of people that I spoke with had some concerns about some stuff that they had said, and I tried to put their minds at ease and to let them know that everything they said was on the up and up. It was all cool and respectful and nice, but there were still concerns, and I just I got in a little funk. I kind of got into this thing where it's like, oh, here's where I'm going to start to hate doing this thing. And I set it down for a week because I just felt like it's starting to get on my nerves. I had other things I was working on, and I just didn't want to get soured to it so early on. So I decided to push back the launch date. I don't have a solid launch date. I'm going to just keep things flexible and wishy-washy for the time being, because I want to make sure that when I go out with this new podcast, I do it in the right way. This podcast, this Ramble Transmissions podcast, is equally important to me and equally fun, but this is kind of my fuck around podcast. I can talk about anything. I can do whatever the hell I want. If I don't want to talk and I want to play music, or if maybe I want to interview somebody, I can do that. I've thought about doing some drawing episodes where it's just me drawing and talking and maybe sharing stories. It's a little more open-ended, whereas the other podcast, the Please Unfriend Me Now podcast, is a little more formatted. It's going to be just discussion and conversational and whatnot, and I'm thrilled for it. So hang in there for those of you who've asked me about it. We'll get it up and running very, very shortly, and it'll be a good time. I promise you, it's going to be great. Folks that I've talked to so far have been fantastic. Just everybody's interesting and fun and great sense of humor, wonderful intellect, and sexy as hell. What can I say? What else? Just before I get on to what I'm going to talk about tonight, I would just like to say that if you'd ever like to reach out, some of you already know this, some of you reach out through Instagram, which isn't the best place for me to get messages. I just don't check the messages there very often. It's mainly because it's on my phone, and I'm not big. I don't like to check messages on my phone, partially because my vision isn't the best. Also, partially because I just don't want to hold my phone in my hand and stare at it any more than I already do. And so I always encourage people to email me and not message me at Facebook. The same deal as Instagram. I mean, you can if you want, but the chances of me getting right back to you are very, very slim. But you can always email me directly at paytostrum@gmail.com, paytostrum@gmail.com, PAYTOSTRUM gmail.com. And that's my direct email, and I'll do my best to get back to you, ASAP. I wanted to discuss an experience that I had in 2017 that I consider probably one of the best experiences in terms of my rock and roll life, my punk rock career. I'm going to put that in caps or quotes. I was invited to open a tour for three great bands actually: Rancid, Dropkick Murphys, and The Selector. Great ska, pioneering ska band. And my booking agent Margie had emailed me and said, "Hey, here's what's happening," or texted me, I guess. You've been invited to do this. It's a solid thing. Good money. You'll get to play in front of a lot of people. Get to tour. You'll be on a bus. Everything's going to be cool. You'll be fed, and everything will be like it's your dream come true, Kevin. And quite frankly, when I said yes to it, I mean, I couldn't say no because I was going to be on this tour that wasn't going to last for very long. It was only like a couple weeks. I would be traveling in comfort. I'd be up on a tour bus. I wouldn't have to worry about anything. I didn't have to worry about drawing people because, look, I'm touring with two huge punk rock bands who every night we're going to play in front of, sold out audiences in these big venues. And I'd just get up with my acoustic guitar and play for 30 minutes. I'd open the show, warm people up, and boom. No matter what I did, I was going to play in front of a minimum of like 1,000 people, 1,500, 2,000 people. So it was a win-win for me. I couldn't say no. I didn't have any reason to say no. There was only one reason that I was a little hesitant, and that was it had to do with our boy dog, Hank. Earlier in the year, we had lost our girl dog, Lulu, who was just our first dog. Allison and I always had cats in the early part of our relationship. And then we found Lulu in 2006, 5, 6, 7. I can't remember. It's always, those dates are always cloudy for me. And fell in love, and it was then that we realized we both loved dogs. And Lulu was the perfect dog to be your first dog. Later on, Al was out and about and rescued this big, beautiful boy dog named Hank. Just a big, goofy mix of stuff, and never in the best of health. He was always dealing with some stuff, but just a sweet boy dog, and we fell in love with him. By the time that I had gotten the offer to do the tour, Hank was in decline. He'd had several health scares. We really thought we were going to lose him quite a few times leading up to that time in our time, and we were pretty convinced that it was any day now kind of thing. So the idea of me up and leaving for a couple weeks, leaving Allison to deal with his possible demise was just devastating to me, and I really, really, truly had to give that some thought because I didn't want her to be alone. And we were barely out of our mourning Lulu's passing, and Peanut, our cat, 18-year-old cat that we lost. So it was on my mind. But that was really the only reason that I considered, hey, maybe I shouldn't do this. But nonetheless, I spoke with Allison, spoke with Margie, and it was like, you got to do this. This is a golden opportunity, and it really was. So I said yes, and boom, it was on. I started seeing advertisements for it. My name was up there. Now, keep in mind, this was a tour called the From Boston to Berkeley tour. And every night it was headlined by either Rancid or Dropkick Murphys. They'd switch depending on the city. The Selector was playing support just before them, and then they had an opener. On the East Coast part of the tour, they had Jake Burns, legendary singer-guitar player for Stiff Little Fingers. And all reports were that he was doing great. He'd get up there with his acoustic guitar and do his songs, and he was kicking it. So I would be the West Coast counterpart, basically, and I was thrilled and honored, of course. And so the weeks leading up to the tour, I was trying to do whatever I could to shed some pounds and work out some songs, and I wanted to make sure that I was like ready for the road. Of course, there's a big difference in touring in a big tour bus and touring in a van or a car, rental car, which I've done more than I care to think about. So yeah, there we were, and what I had decided to do early on. Let me find some. I made some notes here because I wanted to. I kind of wanted to. Those aren't the notes that I want. This is gonna screw me up. I already know it. I had decided that instead of flying out to the first date where I would pick up on the tour was in Denver, Colorado. I believe it was on August. Let me look at that real quick. August 11th. It doesn't really matter that much. August 11th, 2017. I decided that I was going to instead of flying, and don't get me wrong, flying is not a big deal to me. I don't have a fear of flying like I did when I was a kid. I don't enjoy it, but I really just absolutely hate the process of getting ready to fly, knowing how much to take with you and what not to take with you, dealing with the ticketing and getting your guitar on board, and customs security nonsense. And I just wasn't looking forward to doing that. And I said, you know what? I haven't taken a train across the country in years. I'm going to look into that. So checked out Amtrak online, and lo and behold, I was able to get a ticket, go straight to Denver. It didn't cost me that much. It would probably be about a day and a half, I guess. And it just seemed like the right idea. It seemed like the smartest idea. I could hang out, chill, get my mind together, get kind of just not be foisted immediately into this crazy rock and roll circus I was about to be a part of. And so there it was. I got, I remember taking an Uber to the train station here in Sacramento. It was a beautiful day, gloriously sunny, and I remember looking around and just fully appreciating. I always get this weird melancholy, nostalgic, romantic thing happening when I'm leaving town, especially when it's on a great day. I'm paying attention to the trees that we have here and the streets and the houses, and I was like, I love this city so much. Why am I leaving it? And I was just kind of in a little emo mood, I guess. Got to the train station, grabbed some coffee, waited around for a while, and then before I knew it, I was on board the train that goes. I forget the. I used to know the name of the particular route. I should look that up. It doesn't matter. It essentially goes clear across the country. I think it goes from the west coast. It goes from California through Nevada, Utah, Denver, Kansas, maybe Nebraska. Goes up to you're in Chicago, basically. And then from there, I've done this a number of times where I've gone to Chicago and then gotten into the train to go to New York, D.C., Boston, Jersey. It's just it's an incredible ride. I like it. I can see why people wouldn't like it because it is, unless you got a lot of money and you're getting a little sleeper car, which I've just never done. I never thought it was worth the money. The downside is that food-wise, for a vegetarian, there aren't a lot of options. So I ended up eating what I always eat, which is these little cheese mini pizzas, which are just terrible. It's sodium and just gunk and just awful. And goldfish. That's kind of what my diet always is on those train rides. So it's not the healthiest, but I got some writing done. I was taking some photos, talking to some cool people. And before I knew it, I was in I want to say Salt Lake, but it wasn't Salt Lake. It was Denver. And I got there at night, got off the train, got my stuff, grabbed a lift right there at the station. It was so easy. And I'm going to kind of read from my notes. I won't do it for verbatim because these were like kind of quick, short notes that I just thought I would just to remind myself what had happened, just to document. So that I got in at 8:30 p.m., got my stuff off the train, walked out to the front of the station to request a lift. The lift showed up at about 2 minutes. Nice hippie type guy. I'm a hippie type guy. But car was dirty, and the guy seemed a little clueless about directions. Said he had only been driving a month. Now, I'm a little more hard on Lyft drivers and Uber drivers because I happen to be one. I've been a Lyft driver. I don't do too much Ubering anymore, driving-wise, but I've been a Lyft driver now for about 6 years, 6.5 years, maybe 7. And it's been fun. You know, I don't do it too much these days. I do it when I want to make a few bucks or whatever. But I'm really picky about when I get into a car because I keep my car really clean. I like it to look clean, feel clean, smell clean. I don't let our dogs in my car. I mean, I do now, but when I had a Mazda 5 when I first started doing Lyft and Uber, and I wouldn't, for the first 3 years, I wouldn't let our dogs, Lulu and Hank, in my car. As much as I love them, they just weren't allowed in the car. I didn't want the car to ever smell like dog. And I also, you know, early days I wasn't doing food delivery stuff like I do now, so I didn't even want food in my car. I was just that picky, constantly vacuuming and putting air fresheners and just doing everything I could to make the Lyft passengers experience good, and it paid off. You know, I've always been a 5.0 rated driver. Great compliments. People always love being in the car, you know, blah, 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 blah. But yeah, I always notice when I'm in a Lyft or Uber that I'm just like, look at this filthy fucking car. How do you let your car look like this? Come on, for God's sake, you're an adult. Get it together. So that's what it was the first thing I noticed. But, you know, look, I was in a good mood. I'm getting ready to go on this big fucking tour, and who am I to judge some poor schmuck that just started, you know, driving for Lyft? Anyway, so I get to the Airbnb. It's a little apartment, nice little apartment on the second floor of an old building. The owner was home. He came down to greet me, let me in. Super nice guy. I remember us talking about it. He found out I was a musician, and we started talking about music and particularly jazz. It turned out he was kind of a jazz R&B musician who had done some touring and stuff. So it was kind of nice to bro down with him, and I felt comfortable and whatnot. I remember I was really hungry because I'd only eaten dog shit on the train ride, and so I walked a couple miles to a Walgreens. That's all I could find, and just got some more dog shit basically, and mainly just things, you know, stuff to drink for the night, you know, sodas and whatnot. And then I showered and kind of got on the internet and checked in with Allison, and then I was out. I mean, I hadn't slept super solidly on the train just because, again, I don't ever get the sleeper car, so I'm always kind of sleeping, you know, upright in a seat, or I'll go back to the scenic car and I'll kind of lay across a couple of fucking bench seats or whatever. I've even slept on the floor in those places. They're not easy. They make them so that they're not very comfortable to sleep on the floor, which makes sense. So the next day, it's August 11th. I got up around noon, said my goodbyes to Curtis. That was the guy that owned the Airbnb. And I took another Lyft to the venue. And again, I've said here, the driver was kind of hippified and his car was dirty. Maybe I'm just being too hard on Lyft drivers. I don't know. Anyway, on the way over, he was asking me about music. And he, you know, I don't know if he knew who I was or knew about my band, but he was just curious about the show. I got to the venue, and I could see the tour buses out in the front, which is always a very exciting thing. And so I basically just got out wherever. I had all my stuff with me. And I walk up to the buses. I was thinking, look, maybe I'll see a driver and I can ask him, you know, who I knew I was going to be on. I would be traveling in a bus with the crew, the guys that do the sound and the lights and the all the other stuff. I wasn't going to be traveling with Rancid. They had their bus. Dropkicks had their bus. I think the Selector had their own bus. I would be on the bus with the crew, and no problem. I didn't care. It didn't matter to me. As long as it's clean and I can get a good bunk, I don't really care. But I get there to the bus, and I'm looking around to see what's up, and this guy approaches me. He was standing next to one of the buses, and he asked me if I worked with Rancid, and I said, no, I'm not. I'm not with Rancid. And he just kind of just fucking bombarded me. He had a bunch of stuff in his hand. I think he wanted to maybe get somebody from Rancid to sign some stuff, and he kept saying, "Can you call Tim, man? Can you get a hold of him?" And I was like, no, I can't. I mean, I have Tim's number, but I'm not going to text Tim fucking Armstrong and say, "Hey, buddy, you got a buddy, got a kid out here that's wanting to talk to you." I didn't even know where any of those guys were in the first place. So, he just kind of talked my ear off, and I couldn't. Sometimes I'm really bad at that. Instead of just shaking it and cutting it off, I sit there and listen and shake my head like an idiot. The good thing is that I managed to disconnect myself from that conversation. I walked over and kind of went into the production room, and there was an assistant named Julie who was there on a bike, like a little BMX bike. And she asked, she said, "Are you Kevin?" I was like, "Yeah." And she goes, "Okay, we're expecting you. Come on, I'll show you where your bus is." And I was like, "All right, cool." So we went back out, and he's standing around there and trying to ask the same questions, and I just ignored him. And she let me in on the bus, and I wrote a song about the experience. I kind of roughly, it's kind of a tongue-in-cheek song, and if I'm clever enough, I'll try to incorporate it into somewhere over here, just so you can hear a little bit about it, or hear a little bit from the song. But it was just, I remember feeling like she was like my angel that saved me from this fucking Punisher, and she got me on board. I got to situate all my stuff. She said, "Find the bunk that's empty, it's yours." She said, when Jake was on the tour, he stayed in this bunk. I think it's empty. And I said, "Fuck it. Whatever's good for Jake Burns is good for Kevin Seconds." And so I grabbed the bunk. I think it was the bottom bunk. I usually get the bottom or the middle. I don't like being up on the top. They're very coffin-like. And they ride funny, if you feel the shaking and whatnot. It's just the top bunk. Never take the top bunk if you don't have to. That's just a little bit of advice from me. But I got, I was saved. I was solid. I got my stuff on board. I was good for the next 2 weeks. This is going to be home. And again, I don't know anything about the people that I'm traveling with. They're all long veterans travel. They've been part of this tour party for, a month or something. And so they're all like well oiled and they got their places and stuff. So I'm like the new guy coming in and hoping to fit in, basically. So I dumped my stuff off and walked over to the venue. And the venue was this enormous stage. It was like a big stage set up outside in this lot area, this fenced off outside area. The venue, it was at a place called Sculpture Park, which I'm not super familiar with Denver, but it was a huge area. And I know that the show sold out. It was like 6,600 people or something, like close to 7,000 people, probably more than that, actually. And, just seeing everybody running around and they're testing microphones, and people were sound checking and whatnot. It was just all kind of crazy. But it was then that I realized, like, wow, I'm in this. This is happening. Like, this is no joke. I'm going to be doing this for the next 2 weeks. This is crazy. So I ended up going to so I'm just kind of wandering around, and I see catering, and I'm kind of hungry, and I kind of want something to drink, and so I'm looking around, and I run into Lars and Matt from Rancid, and they welcome me and say hello and whatnot. And I met Evan, who was the Dropkick's TM, their tour manager, and he was basically my go-to guy. He and I had been emailing leading up to that. He was saying, just get a hold of me. Here's my phone number. Text me if you have questions, and just I'll help you out as much as I can, and just get a hold of me first and foremost, which I did basically. And he was a great guy. He basically, any questions I had, it was like Evan was the guy to go to. And then I was shown in my own private green room, and I changed my guitar strings, and I was good to go. My set time that night was something like 5 o'clock, 5:30, and the doors open at 5. That's what it was, and then I went on at 5:30, and like I said, I would go on, and people were still streaming in. People were still coming in because it'd be early. But no matter what, I was playing in front of like a full floor house. So it was easily, 2,000 people, 3,000 people by the time I was on. And I think I did good. I felt good. My voice was strong. I felt like I was playing okay. The crowd was being very polite and very nice. I saw some friends out in the crowd waving and being, smiling and whatnot. And that was a really nice little feeling. But I remember the minute I got done, I walked down the steps and, people said, "Hey, good set, Kev, way to go," and da-da-da. And exhaustion hit me like fucking bricks. I just wanted to go to sleep. And I don't know what it was. It was almost like, okay, I got it. I did what I came here to do. Now go fucking get a good night's rest and get really ready for the rest of this. But I really couldn't. I wanted to be present. I wanted to catch, a Selector set. I don't remember seeing them that night. Dropkicks played. I got some footage because my nephews are really into Dropkick Murphys. I got some footage to send them. And then Rancid came out, and it was really beautiful. It was like both bands were on at night, and there was a kind of a stretch of the freeway right alongside the venue, so it was just constant, traffic. But the lights and the smell and the feel and everything just was pretty magical, I got to say. And I did get to run in and have some chats with some old friends and stuff, so that part of it was nice. But man, I was so beat. I went to my green room. I may have even just kind of sat there for a second, sweating, and just dozed off. What was great about all of these venues is that you could always shower. They always had a nice, clean shower room, or several, and big catering. So there was always food and stuff to drink, and it was kind of quite the opposite of what I'm used to, with especially touring solo. 7 Seconds, sometimes we get treated a little bit nicely, but this was just rock and roll stuff, like really well done, professional. Everybody was like, "Are you get enough to eat? You want more?" And I was like, "Yeah, this was good. Maybe I'll take another plate of fucking toast or whatever the fuck." But I was just so friggin' happy to get kind of done. And I remember going to the bus and just getting on the bus, and somebody had provided, there was just a stack of pizzas, like pizza boxes with hot pizza inside, and there was like pizza, with fucking pepperoni and sausage and veggies, and I found the one with just cheese. I grabbed 2 slices, went to the back in the back lounge. I knew that like everybody that was on that bus would still be busy for hours, and so it was just nice to just relax, breathe, change my clothes. I guess I'd already changed my clothes after the shower, but just kind of chill. I texted Al, or maybe I called her, and I just said, wow, it happened. First show's done. Here's what happened. She asked me how I felt, and I said I felt great. I'm exhausted. And then I just remember kind of climbing into the bunk and laying there and just pulling the curtain shut, and just the next thing I know, there's all this noise. People are getting on the bus. I can feel the movement. The bus starts. It's way later, probably 4 hours, 3 hours, and I'm like, oh shit, we're moving. This is crazy, And I didn't really know what to do. I didn't want to jump out there and be like, hey guys, I'm Kevin Seconds, and meet everybody. I could tell there was at least like 5, 6 other people on the bus. So I just stayed in my bunk and just, that was it for the night. I remember the ride was a little weird, just getting kind of used to the movement. I like it personally. The movement, the feeling of laying down when you're moving is kind of something that I've just gotten used to over the years. It's all I've really known. In fact, I struggle sometimes with sleeping we have the most comfortable bed at home. It's big and it's nice and cushy and it's great. But, I can still, I still need I need some noise in my ears because of my tinnitus. Movement kind of calms me a little bit, and it gets me into a kind of a weird state. And it just is, it's not for everybody, clearly. I'm not even sure if nowadays I could do it as much as I've done it. In fact, I'm pretty sure I couldn't. But it's just, it's a thing for sure that I've just grown accustomed to over the years. But in the bus, it's a little different because you're in, like I said, it's kind of coffin-like. And, you usually have a light or two. You got stuff to plug in so you can charge your phone and whatnot. The buses always have, like, Wi-Fi. They have satellite, so, you can get Wi-Fi. it was all pretty set up, very, very comfortable. But that first night, we did an all-night drive basically to Salt Lake, and what is that, about 7-8 hours? And I just kept waking up and kind of not sure where I was at. By the time I finally got to sleep, I woke up and it was like noon, and we're in this what was I going to say? Let me look at my notes because I just want to make sure. So I said I woke up and we were in the parking lot of the Salt Lake, the Salt Air, a place I've seen 100 times before but never been inside. Now, it was about noon. The Salt Air is this really interesting building. For years and years and years, I would see it just coming into Salt Lake City usually it was from Reno, on so many 7 Seconds tours. We would just I'd see it out in the salt flats. There was two buildings. Let me see if I can. I was going to look this up before I did this, and I apologize. The Great Salt Air, is that the Great Salt Air is what it's called. But there are two things that are really noticeable when you're coming into Salt Lake City. You've driven through the salt flats. Generally speaking, for whatever reason, I'm always driving through it in like right as it's getting sunny outside. It's morning, and the light coming off the salt flats is blinding. And I've been up for fucking 7 hours driving usually. It's just a weird, surreal experience. But there were always these two things that stand out in my mind. These two landmarks, and I don't know which comes first. There's this enormous smokestack for some sort of plant, like maybe a mining company or something. Just a massive smokestack. I looked it up. There's a name for it, and those of you who live in the area probably know. You could tell me what it's called. There's that, and then there's the Salt Air, which is off on the other side of the freeway, and I never knew what it was. It was just this building that kind of has this. I'm not sure what the architecture is called. Let me see if I can look it up real quick. The Salt Air. It says it was completed in 1893, which is crazy. The first Salt Air. And it was kind of done it says an example of an early 20th century Moorish revival architecture. So it's got this like really eye-catching look. And it looks like maybe the first one caught fire and they've built one or two since then. But nonetheless, it's a cool looking building. I just never had played there before. And so I wake up in the parking lot and we're sitting right there and I'm like, oh, okay, I finally get to play this place I've seen a million times. Everybody else was off the bus, so I still hadn't really met anybody. I met, the guys that do the stage work. I had met them when I went up on stage in Denver, and they introduced themselves and stuff like that and said, hey, we're looking forward to riding with you. But, there were people I hadn't met probably 2 or 3 days into the tour, so it is what it is. But yeah, I just kind of got my shit together, and it was just very hot. I remember feeling just kind of overwhelmed by the heat of it, and it kind of bummed me out a little bit. I was just like, oh, Jesus, it's one of the reasons that I spent so much time touring during the fall and winter, because even though there was always a chance of hitting rain and snow and shitty, thunderstorms or whatever, it was just better than just intense heat. I just never been my favorite. I can deal with it, but it's not my favorite. But it was great because I saw Angie, who is my ex-girlfriend, dear friend to this day. She was living in Salt Lake at the time, and she came to the show. I put her on the list. I got to hang out with her. Conrad, who is this great friend from Salt Lake City. He's done shows. He runs a cool club called the Beehive. Just a great guy. He's booked me before. Super sweet guy, and I was looking forward to seeing him, and we get to hang out a little bit. The show itself was great. I had a fun set. The overall show was great. I caught a little bit more of the selector They were fantastic. I think I met them that night, or a couple of them that night. Dropkick and Dropkicks and Rancid were fucking great as always. And there's not much, you can't say much bad about these bands in terms of being live bands. They're incredible, and anybody that wants to piss on them or shit on them or whatever, please don't do it in front of me, because I'm going to laugh at you. But the show was great. It was really fun, and it cooled down quite a bit. The place was packed out. I believe there was like 5,000 people there, some crazy shit. And once we were done, I got back on the bus. I don't think I showered that night. I think I just got on the bus and chilled, changed my clothes, and talked to some people on the bus. I said goodbyes to my friends, and then we just did a long drive to Idaho. The next date was Nampa, Idaho, which I believe is outside of Boise. I may be wrong. We played at a place called the Ford Idaho Center Amphitheater, and it was just a weird. Well, we drive all night. We get there, and the same old thing. I wake up at some point. Everybody else is awake and doing their thing. You got to keep in mind, the load-ins at these shows were like 9:30 in the morning, 9 o'clock, 9:30 in the morning. Rancid and Dropkick Murphys would be doing there'd be stuff setting up all during the afternoon, and by 3 o'clock, Rancid would be on, or Dropkick Murphys would be on doing sound check. I had never been on a tour where load-in was anything earlier than like 5 o'clock at night, and that just blew my fucking mind that these guys would be up setting up stage. Keep in mind, they had a semi truck that had gear. Maybe they had two, besides the tour buses that were on this tour. This was a big production. And, they had the monitor behind them with all the visual stuff and the great sound and lights and stuff like that. So it was an all day thing. But yeah, I remember just kind of getting up and roaming around, and this place looked like it kind of had this fairgrounds. There was like maybe a rodeo stadium or rodeo arena. And it was just kind of a weird vibe. Just kind of not my favorite kind of venue for whatever reason. Like, I could be too picky, right? I played literally at pig farms. I'm not kidding. Pig farms in El Paso, Texas. I'll talk about that one of these days. But yeah, it was overcast. I remember, I almost forgot this, but I remember I made a faux pas. I had taken I had been given a tour laminate, right? An all access tour laminate. So my laminate would get me in everywhere. I could go backstage. I could stand on stage. I could go into the little area where the photographers stood. I could kind of go anywhere. And it's a big deal. It's a very VIP pass, right? I had taken a photo of me holding it, and I posted that photo on Instagram. It just not even thinking about it. It was kind of half showing off and half kind of wanting to, check in with my people and say, look at me, look what we're doing. And almost immediately I got a text message from Evan, tour manager of the whole thing, and he said, hey, buddy, and I think he called me actually, and he said, hey, I hate to bug you, I hate to hit you up about this, but you posted a photo of the laminate. Can you please take that down? And I was like, yeah, sure, no problem. And he goes, I hate to be an asshole, but this is, people will take that photo. It's clear enough to where they could color copy it, and make tour laminates, and I guess maybe get into shows for free or something, get free shit. I don't know. It made sense. I just didn't, I didn't understand the logic. I didn't understand why that was a thing. And so I yanked the thing, and I felt stupid. I should have known better, but I was just being silly or whatever. But I don't remember. I walked to a Walmart. I remember I wanted a pad of paper and some pens. And that was, for me, there's always this thing where I'm just like looking for ways to feel a little more normalized on a tour, just because everything is just, you're on a schedule, but it doesn't feel like it. You're not on the rest of the world schedule. You're kind of on this punk rock and roll schedule, and it all has to work. You got to be places. You got to get place for load in. You got to get the place for sound check, and if you take off to the hotel, you got to be back by a certain point with doors and your set time. And there's a bus call at a certain time. You have to be at the bus at such and such, or they're going to leave you behind. But it still feels surreal and abnormal. So anytime I get a chance to kind of venture out and do something normal, go to a fucking Starbucks and get coffee, or get on my laptop and use their internet, or go to fucking Walmart and buy socks, it makes me feel like I'm evening things out a little bit in my current life. And so I did that, and it looked like it was going to rain. I think maybe it did rain. But I got back, and I remember being thrilled because Greg Antonito from the Bouncing Souls, dear friend, and his beautiful wife Shanti were there, and it was just so good to see him. We hugged and smiled, and then they gave me the news. They were pregnant. Shanti was expecting, and that's amazing because I see photos of their son now. He's just like a big kid, But I remember being... maybe it was I hadn't slept well. Maybe I was just missing home and missing Al and thinking about Hank, our dog. But I remember just kind of going, I remember feeling very emotional, kind of tearing up a little bit. It was kind of like good news balancing whatever bad news I felt like I was experiencing in my own life. And so that was really a nice, wonderful little moment. But other than that, the show was great. I don't remember being blown away by the energy of the crowd. There was a lot of people. Both of the Rancid and Dropkick did fucking incredibly well. I think I did good as far as I can remember. I didn't make any notes about that. I'm sure I did coming up, but yeah, it was just a interesting kind of, the venue location was just a little off for me. Said goodbyes to people and checked in with Al. I remember being really worried because, like I said, when I left home, I was very aware of Hank not doing well health-wise, and that at any moment I could get a text or a phone call from Allison saying Hank's no longer with us, and I could have done it. I would have been able to handle it. It would have broken me up. I would have felt worse that Al was by herself. I mean, we have friends and stuff, people that she could lean on while I'm gone. But it was just this feeling of like, man, I was dreading that moment when it happened. And, so I'm constantly, the minute I'm done at the show, I look at my phone to see if there's any texts. And there wasn't at that point, thank goodness. But I recall we had a night drive. We went up into Canada. The border crossing was super easy. I don't even remember us. I'm sure we had to get off the bus to bring our passports, but I don't remember the border people going up on the bus or anything like that. It was pretty short. We pulled up we got into Vancouver and pulled up to a hotel and parked at the parking lot of the hotel. Now, keep in mind, my deal was that I wasn't planning on staying at hotels at all during this adventure. I was told, hey man, if you want to live off the bus, have at it. You got the fucking code to get in. You got use of the refrigerator, the oven. I mean the microwave. You got your place to sleep, place to sit. You got power. You got Wi-Fi. Go to town. More than likely, everybody on the bus is going to be in hotel rooms. And there are always day rooms. For those that don't know, they usually on a tour like that, they'll rent out a couple of day rooms. So you got the bus that you're kind of living on, but you can't. For instance, you can't poop on a bus in the toilet. You can pee, but you can't poop. But there's no shower on these buses, so it's just like day rooms are for people, whatever band members and crew people to go in, take showers and relax in the room, watch some TV, make phone calls, drink shitty coffee, hotel coffee. I think I took showers maybe twice in a day room, if that. Like I said, the venues were so solid and so good that there were always showers at the venue. So I would shower after my set, and then I was good for the night. But it was a day off. It was a Monday, and it was a part of. I don't know Vancouver super well, and anytime I've been in Vancouver, we always play in venues in pretty sketchy neighborhoods, very urban and very kind of like. There's always a feeling that there's drug dealers around or hookers, and I don't mind that stuff. I've grown up around that, but. This was kind of a touristy area. I want to say there was a marina with like boats. It was kind of scenic and nice. And I thought, I'm just gonna wander around a little bit. I why not, right? Maybe I'll go look for some real food, real coffee, maybe see if there's any record stores. And I don't know, I was out for a few hours. I just walked around, kind of getting some exercise, and it was nice to take some photos. And I sat at a little coffee place, and I did some drawing and some writing in my journal. And knowing that night was basically going to be just me on the bus. The driver was in a hotel, all the crew were in hotel rooms, and so I kind of liked the idea. And I thought, what I'm going to do is I'm going to work on a new song. So I brought a little recording gadget with me just so that I could always be able to write, work on new stuff work on new songs if I had time. And on these days off, I said, fuck it, make the best of it. So got back, had food for the night and stuff to drink, and I felt well rested. And so I started banging around on the guitar, and I came up with some melodies. I'm pretty sure I came up. There was a group of songs that I wrote, about 10 songs during that time. I was trying to write 10 songs every month during that year for some reason. It always changes, but I remember 2017 I was on this quest to try to write 10 songs a month. And people that were part of my sort of fan club, supporter club, paid members would get access to these songs that the rest of the public wouldn't. And I've shared some of these songs throughout the years and stuff, but there was a kind of an interesting group of songs, I have to say, because it was all stuff that was written on tour, recorded, big parts of it were recorded on a tour bus, and it's fun to listen to. I don't much these days, but it's kind of neat to listen to it. And again, if there's a way to sneak in some of this music from this particular time, I'll put it in here, and you guys can hear some of the stuff. But yeah, I just had a great night alone, and I just got some stuff done, and I was out. The next day, we get to the venue. It's a huge hockey arena. I'm not sure what hockey team. It wasn't the Vancouver Canucks. Are they even a team anymore? I don't know. Let's look them up, shall we? Vancouver Canucks. Vancouver are a professional. Was it at that arena? It couldn't have been. That was too big of an arena. This arena was good size. Well, let me look here. All right. It was called the Thunderbird Arena. So it was on the University of BC grounds. So probably was a college hockey team. That would make sense. It was pretty impressive, but it was a big place. I believe there was probably 5,500, 6,000 people there. Most of these shows, if not sold out, were like close. And I remember feeling a terrible amount of pride because Sacramento was the first show to sell out. Now, granted, it was the smallest of all the venues on that tour, but it was the first one to sell out. I remember thinking, "Go Sacramento! That's my town." Yeah, so we're at this fucking crazy hockey arena, and I wrote down it was very maze-like. I remember the backstage area, just getting to the green room. Keep in mind, I also had my own green room every night. All the bands had their own spot. It was kind of overwhelming, to be honest with you, because sure, I'd have friends come backstage and they could hang out with me, but I didn't. I never needed a full bar. I never needed a lot of food backstage. It was all pretty basic. It was usually a comfortable couch, a shower room, and then a comfortable couch to chill out on before the set or whatever. And if I had friends, I could, entertain and pretend like I was a rock star. But I remember it was very maze-like, and just kind of getting around was kind of weird. I had a great set that night. I remember just really enjoying the connection I felt I had with the Vancouver crowd. People were just really vocal but energetic and supportive, and I like that. One other standout note is that I got to hang out with Evan, the drummer from one of my favorite bands, Bishop's Green. Vancouver fucking legend, street punk oi band, skinhead guys, all on the right side of things. Just great fucking dudes, great band. They did a tour with 7 Seconds years back, and we just had a blast. But I've seen Evan a few times. Anytime I go up to Vancouver, Evan always comes out, and he's just a fucking great great fella. I always enjoyed hanging out with him. But the show was great. It was a lot of fun, and everybody, all the bands raged. It was one of the first nights that I really tried to watch everybody, at least good chunks of everybody's set. Selector was becoming a bigger fan. Was never that familiar with them. I knew, of course, who they were and that they were legendary, but I didn't know much about them, not being a big ska guy. And just every night they were so good and just lovely, friendly people. But, sometimes I'd turn around during my set and I'd see two of the people from the band watching and smiling and cheering me on. And it was a really, really great band. Of course, Dropkick Murphys, Rancid were just spectacular pretty much every night. I'll talk a little bit about the contrast of the two bands in a second here. Most of you would know what I'm talking about, but just from my perspective, it was quite striking, really.